nominee and current chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Wisconsin Congressman Paul Ryan. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Your reaction?
A liberal speech by a liberal president. No surprises there. A lot of things I didn't agree with. Some things I did. I thought it was kind of a repeat of the greatest hits of the Obama administration, his lines. Having said all of that, his tone and tenor were less partisan and less divisive than we were led to believe and expect that we were going to get. So I think there's something to be said for that. I think there are things that he talked about that we can work together on, and I'm eager to do that. I would say that he kind of papered over the economic performance of his administration. Look at where we are. Look at labor force participation rates. 92 million Americans, able-bodied, not working. Look at 45 million people living in poverty. Look at wages that have been stagnating. I don't think his economic policies have been working, and I think he tried to gussy them up to make it look like they are. So I don't think doing more of the same is going to work. And calling for, yet again, another round of tax increases, especially on job creation, it's not a good idea. But I don't agree with those things. But having said all of that there are some things he said that I think we can work together on. And I hope we can get those things done.
Let's start there. Trade is one of them.
That's the big one, I think.
And for you, is corporate tax reform one of them?
Well, we want to make sure that small businesses aren't left out on the cold on this. I mean, that's, after all, where most of people's jobs come from. The president is basically making it clear with his tax proposals that he doesn't want to do comprehensive tax reform. We're not going to raise taxes. He knows we're not going to raise taxes. So I'm kind of surprised he pays even lip service to that. But can we find some tax reform that helps all businesses create more jobs? I'd like to think the answer is yes. I'd like to think that there perhaps is an area for common ground there, and we're going to try and explore it and see if we can find something.
What do you say to people who look at this and say the president is now driving this train after historic Republican wins? Why not come out with your own tax reform plan? I mean, Chairman Dave Camp had one that kind of got
just last year,
but kind of got shot down in your party.
Well, like I said, we're going to. The president has said he wants to work with us on tax reform. We've agreed to sit down and work with him on tax reform. I found it a little interesting that yesterday he puts this idea out there that he wants a huge tax increase, knowing that we're not going to do that. That to me is really unproductive. And the divisive class warfare rhetoric that he uses to try and divide people based on income, that's not presidential. We want to come together to grow a healthy economy. Hardworking taxpayers deserve a break in this country. They're not getting one. Washington hasn't been listening to them. I think it would be refreshing to see us come together to get things done for the common good, to grow the economy, to get people back to work. And I think if he would embrace some of those kinds of policies that we know achieve that, then we'd make a good difference. And I hope we can do that. And like I said, I think for him, this was not as partisan of a speech as he usually gives, notwithstanding the veto threats and the rest.
He also says Republicans are obsessed with the Keystone XL pipeline. And
it creates jobs.
And they should be obsessed with infrastructure more broadly across the country.
We're for all of those things. We're for infrastructure. 700,000 barrels of oil a day will either go to this economy in this country or go to China. That's the choice. Thousands of jobs. So I can't for the life of me understand why he would say no to this. He's now threatening a veto. There are a lot of other energy jobs that we could have in this country to make us less energy dependent on Middle Eastern oil, create more energy jobs. But he and his administration have stood in the way of all of these things. So I would love to see him come around on some of these issues. For one reason or another, he won't. I think it's because he's sort of to the left side of the left wing of his party on these issues. And these are big job creators that he's walking away from. And I wish he wouldn't. But we'll give him the choice. We will put these bills on his desk now that we have the Senate and the ability to do this. Because, by the way, Democrats agree with us on a lot of these things. And we'll give him the opportunity with his veto pen to say whether he's with this or not.
So do you see this as a marker in negotiations? Or do you see this as kind of a legacy thing and laying a roadmap for 2016?
Look, we're going to do everything we can to try and create jobs, to get people back to work, to create more of an opportunity economy. Opportunity for everybody, favoritism for none. We're going to go after corporate welfare. We're going to go after cronyism. We're going to try and respect the taxpayer by balancing the budget. Some of these bills he will maybe sign. A lot of them he probably won't. But nevertheless, people deserve a choice, and they want to see options. We as Republicans are going to show people who we are, what we believe in, and how we want to get this country forward. And we think and hope that the president will work with us on some of these things. And we will have to find common ground to get some things done. And then on some issues, we'll just agree to disagree.
I want to ask you about politics here. You were the vice presidential nominee last time. The former nominee gave you a call, Mitt Romney. You said you're not running this time. Mm-hmm. Is that why?
No, I told him a while ago that I wasn't going to run. So this is something that he knew was in my mind for some weeks now.
And what do you think about a prospective Mitt Romney candidacy?
Look, I make no secret about it. I think he'd make a fantastic president. I said this all along. I think he's been vindicated by a lot of his projections, his predictions on foreign policy and economic growth. I think he'd make a great president. He does not know what he's going to do. He's still trying to think it through. The last thing I want to do is get out ahead of his decision-making process. But, yeah, do I wish we had Mitt Romney giving that speech tonight than Barack Obama? Of course.
You know, a lot of people had some raised eyebrows when Jeb Bush launched a super PAC with the name Right to Rise, and you gave him the authority to use that name.
Yeah, it's a phrase that I've been using, but it's nothing that, I possess. Look, I love the idea of the right to rise, of creating an opportunity society, of getting people out of poverty into hitting their potential, and that's what our policies ought to be about the American dream and the American idea being restored for all Americans. And when he asked me if it's okay if he uses a phrase that I used to use, fine, great.
So who would you support?
Oh, look, I'm not going to get into any of this stuff. I've recently decided to chair the RNC Trust, which is basically the fund for the general election for the eventual nominee. So what I'm going to try and do is my part, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, to find common ground to grow the economy, to show Republican alternatives on the big issues of the day like Obamacare, and to do what I can to help my party win the White House in 2016. Because honestly, I don't think we can fix the big messes we have in this country until we win the White House.